Hey guys, welcome back. Recently, Gate Enterprise contacted me and asked if I would review a couple of Mosfets for them. Of course I said yes, because Mosfets are some of my favorite things to review, install, and really test out. This is the version 3 Aster. I'm really looking forward to installing this in an airsoft gun today, reviewing it, and see what its capabilities are. The version 3 Aster comes in a pretty small little black box. It's well packaged. They do include a lot of foam in here. And it comes with a little Gate Aster patch, so that's always a nice touch. Every single Aster does. It comes with 2 programming cards, which is interesting. It's got all their it's like a cheat sheet almost to kind of remind you on the field or on the fly what settings you have and how to access them and such. One's for an AK and one is for a G36. You do get a really comprehensive manual here, and we'll talk about this a little more at the tech table, but it goes over the install and all the troubleshooting and setting up. It's really a fairly comprehensive little booklet, and I'm quite pleased that an airsoft company includes this with their product. Now, of course, we have the little install kit. This has all the connectors and screws and heat shrink and some little stickers that you put inside the gearbox to help everything run smoothly. And lastly, the V3 Aster. I've been really looking forward to installing this since it got to my doorstep a few days ago. I'm going to install this in my Classic Army G36K. I've been using that as kind of an upgrade platform lately for a lot of different parts, and I really want to take it to a whole new level and remove the original Marui style trigger switch that's in there and put in a programmable MOSFET. That way I can finally run a hotter battery on it. Alright, I have my Classic Army G36K gearbox out of the gun. I do have to do a little prep to get the Gate Aster prepared to be installed in here. Namely, I do have to unsolder these old motor contacts. They're soldered directly onto the motor, which is not a good thing because the Aster uses plugs instead of soldering direct. So that has to be removed, and I do have to take apart the entire gearbox, clean it out a little bit, and then take a number of components out, such as the selector plate and a few other things, to be prepared for install. I've gone ahead and removed all the internal components from the gearbox, and I've dropped in the version 3 Aster. I do need to install a screw and a washer here to keep it in place. It was a little tricky to get the board to fit with all the wiring out the front, so be aware that that can be a little bit of a process. Gate supplies a lot of installation components, such as these washers. You get 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3 millimeter washers for keeping your board in place with the existing gearbox screw. I'm going to try and keep this as low profile as possible and start with the 0.1s and work my way up from there as needed. Thankfully, only a 0.1 millimeter shim is all I needed to keep the Aster board in place. It is hand tightened down without cranking it too hard. The Gate system allows you to tune even the small trigger bracket behind the trigger. This normally would push the trigger shuttle into the circuit in the Tokyo Marui setup, but this is actually read by a small IR diode in the Gate system. I ended up not using any backlash stickers on the trigger cam. The fitment was already pretty good and I didn't want to push my luck there. I did have to install a small white sticker on the right side of the cam though. Thankfully they include half a dozen of these stickers. I did actually mess up install on the first one because I did not clean the grease that was on this off. So make sure you clean off any lubricant that's on here, otherwise the sticker will not stay in place. Probably the part of the installation for this that took the most work was the selector. I did have to shave down a little bit on the kind of inside section here for the sticker to have enough reflective room. And you might need to adjust it in the settings a little bit depending on how you like it in the app, but this is essentially how it'll look when you're all finished. Today we're going to be using the new Blu-link to program the version 3 Aster. I love the modularity of this. Just in case something happens with Bluetooth that's built into your board, you don't have to replace the whole thing, just this device. So very, very neat idea. This comes with your Blu-link card. This has my pin on the other side. You definitely don't need to see this, but you want to keep that. A little ID card that is kind of a little troubleshooting option there, and an instruction booklet. Make sure you turn on your Bluetooth and your GPS. You don't want to actually Bluetooth directly to the device from your phone. You want to do it in the Gcs app. Now, I have already connected to this Gate Aster several times just to make sure everything works. So some of the settings are already taken care of, some things have been changed, and I have set up the selector already, so it's good to go. Once you are set up with your phone, go ahead and hit New Device. Now, you'll see the Blu-link is there and it's scanning for a new device. What I'm going to do is actually connect the battery now. And you hear the buzz from your motor. I'm going to go ahead and scan again. And then your Blu-link should show up, and this one's going to light up. But if you haven't connected before, it'll simply populate. Sometimes it can take a second. I've noted it is a little tricky. There we go. It just lit up and it's now going to connect to the Blu-link. I hit connect there, and now we've got access to the Aster and we can program it. When you first plug a battery into the Blu-link, it'll light up green, then start blinking blue, noting that the Bluetooth is ready to connect. After it is connected, it'll light up blue like this. The Gcs app offers quite a bit on board the Aster. So, some things to cover first of all. Right now we're in programming mode. If I want to switch it to shooting mode, essentially, you'll hear kind of a click and then some beeps there on your motor on your airsoft gun. It'll say shooting mode is on. I can put it in semi or full auto and shoot right now and it'll operate. Once I put it back to programming mode, it'll reconnect to the ETU and I can program it. If I pull the trigger on the board right now, it will not fire. I'm going to go to general and we just walk through a lot of the settings that are here. There's actually a ton you can manipulate on your device. You'll notice that there are 3 profiles up here. You can have 3 different settings that you can even swap on the field with the trigger pull, which is really, really cool. So if I want to have a safe semi burst setting, or a full auto binary safe, or just any kind of wacky setup, you could store that in 1 and then have a standard setup on 2 and etc. To turn that feature on with trigger pulls, you can simply hit that option there. Cycle detection, it is going to come on, which is great. You of course want to have that. With battery protection, you can pick the type of battery you want to monitor. I've got it on auto in case I want to run a 2 or 3 cell here. And you can also manually pick what voltage you want to cut off with your LiPo in case it ducks a little too much there. Series safety limit, I'm going to leave that off, but you can turn that on if you want and limit it to a specific number of BBs, which is rather neat. Active braking has been around in a lot of Mosfets, but they give you a lot of manual options here. I can set exactly what number of percentage I want on the active braking. I do want to dip it down a little bit. Let's put it at like 50% there. Or we could do adaptive, but I am going to leave it on manual at 50 there. It comes if you have it on manual at 100%, and you can dip it down a little bit there if you like to. Let's go to the next setting here, the trigger. We do have it on a 1 stage currently, and it does give you a warning if you actually look at this, which is rather interesting. And right now, I went ahead and played around with it and put it on 0, or actually 1. You can't even put it on 0. When I put it on this mode, it was at, I think, give or take 20% or so when it started. I put it on 0 so that if you just barely give it a tap, it'll fire, which is a rather neat function. I'll show that in just a minute here. But there are a lot of sensitivity settings in here. Now let's take a look at these selector settings. I currently have it on the 1 stage trigger, which actually gives you a lot more options in your selector modes. First, we're going to look at the selector configuration here. I'm going to move my selector switch from safe right now. You can see it's kind of just barely giving a little light there. Up to semi, and I can actually wiggle my selector and see where it's at there, and then go up to full auto. And it's obviously on full auto. If I want, I can actually tune where my full auto and my semi-auto kick in there, which is fantastic. So I'm actually going to drop my safe a little bit more there, so I've got a little bit more room in there in case I don't move semi exactly where it should be. And we can actually switch the type of gun here too. So I've got it on a G36. You can switch to AK or AUG there. And you do have fine calibrations here too a little bit, and that's done also by the little dots there you can move. For our 1 stage trigger, I'm going to go here and I can actually set my safe option, so I don't even have to have a safe. I can have semi, burst, and full auto, which is really cool. Keep in mind, on a lot of guns you do have to remove the mechanical safety that's in there. On this one I left it in there, so I'm going to leave safe as safe. But my semi-auto, I can make semi, full auto, burst, which we can actually change the number of rounds fired, binary, which is a lot of fun, semi-ramping, and burst full auto. I'm going to leave mine on semi because I'm a basic human. Auto, we've got a lot of the same options, actually all the same options here. Again, I'm pretty normal. I like my full auto there. We do have burst mode here, and to access it, I need to turn something on burst, so I'm going to make my semi a burst option. Go back, and now we can look at our burst mode. We can either do full or interruptible burst. I'm going to leave it on full, and we can see how many BBs we can do on the burst. So if I want, I can be absolutely mean, like positively evil, and do a 99 round full burst. Nah, I'm gonna do a 3 round burst. That is really, really crazy. Go to the magazine, and if we want, we can actually limit our magazine. So it's a simulated one right now. Normally, you know, 30 BBs is pretty normal, or 30 bullets in the real firearm. But we can limit it to, say, if you've got a 200 round high cap, you can do that. Very cool. There is an option for magazine reload time, and then there is an option for low ammo warning as well. So if you've got a 90 round mid cap you're running, and obviously it's tough to tell how many BBs are left in your magazine because it's opaque, you can get a good idea by doing that. I do have an alert here. It's for a vibration warning. I can turn that off if I want to. My telemetry on this gun, I can look at pretty much any information I want to. The rate of fire, trigger response, rate of fire achieved on semi. In addition to my basic airsoft telemetry on my Aster, I can also look at the electrical statistics as well. Very, very cool. I can actually see the temperature of the Aster and the voltage. For this test, I'm going to be using one of my test batteries. This is a 4,000 milliamp hour 50C 7.4 volt LiPo. It's a little inflated, but it makes for a fine test battery, even though it's probably a little bit past its prime. So we've got safe 3-round burst. It's a little whiny, but it's all stock Classic Army for the most part as far as the gears go. And full auto. Now, I did run a big fat 4,000 milliamp hour 11.1 LiPo on this, and it was ripping well past 30 a second, which was just so much fun. But it does put a lot of wear in my mechanical system, so I'm not going to do that a whole lot. Now, I've got the trigger sensitivity set to 100% here. I'm just going to lightly tap the trigger. It goes maybe somewhere between 1 and 2 millimeters and then fires. Much, much faster, better response than the original Marui contact style. Last thing I want to point out here is this is the Expert software, so it's got all the bells and whistles you can possibly have on this Gate Aster and as many options and sensitivity settings as it's capable of. Also, if you don't have the Blu-link, the link cable, the app, or anything else to program your Aster, you can still use the little cheat sheet here and use trigger pulls to program your Aster. There's always an option, even if you don't have all the hardware. So before editing all my video footage together for both the version 3 and the version 2 Aster that you'll see here shortly, I did notice that the version 3 takes a little bit more work to install than the version 2. The version 2 is pretty straightforward, just I think 1 or 2 stickers depending. This one had 3 stickers potentially, and it's just a bit more work. I did have to modify the selector plate, but it's not too crazy. I do highly recommend though that if you're going to install any MOSFET, including the Gate Aster, that you at least have some tech experience and kind of know what you're doing. It is a bit of a process, but the rewards are definitely worth it. I want to give Gate Enterprise a huge thank you for sending out this Gate version 3 Aster and the Blu-link. This was a lot of fun to install, and I'm going to have a ton of fun with this on the field with all the different settings it offers and the versatility of programming it. Thanks for watching, guys. I'm Prodigy Airsoft Team Kilo 23. I'll see you guys very shortly in the next review.